There's a quiet crisis happening right now that most people don't fully understand, and it's destroying their financial future 1 month at a time. It's not a stock market crash. It's not a housing bubble. It's something more insidious because it's slow and steady and almost invisible. Your paycheck stays the same. The number in your bank account doesn't change. But somehow, every month, you can afford less. The grocery bill that used to be $150 is now $220. The rent that was $1,500 is now $2,000. The car insurance that was $100 is now $160. And your salary? Still the same as it was 3 years ago. Or maybe you got a 3% raise that felt good until you realized inflation was running at 6%, which means in real terms, you got a pay cut. You're working the same hours, doing the same job, but you're getting poorer every single month, and most people have no idea how to fight back against this. They just accept it. Accept that things cost more. Accept that their standard of living is declining. Accept that they'll never get ahead. But it doesn't have to be this way. Warren Buffett has said that inflation is the invisible tax that governments impose without legislation. It's a transfer of wealth from people who hold cash and earn wages to people who own assets. And if you understand this, if you really grasp what's happening, you can protect yourself. You can even profit from it. But you have to change how you think about money and income. You have to stop thinking like an employee trading time for dollars and start thinking like an investor who owns assets that inflate in value along with everything else. That's what we're going to cover today. A complete blueprint for inflation-proofing your income in 2026 and beyond. Not theoretical strategies that only work for wealthy people. Practical, actionable steps that everyday people can implement starting today to protect themselves from having their purchasing power silently stolen through inflation. Let's start by understanding what's actually happening. Because most people's mental model of inflation is wrong. They think inflation means prices go up. And yes, that's true on the surface. But what's really happening is the currency is losing value. The dollar in your pocket today buys less than the dollar you had last year. Not because goods became more valuable, but because the dollar became less valuable. The government has printed trillions of dollars over the past decade. COVID stimulus, quantitative easing, deficit spending, and every time they print more money, every dollar already in existence becomes worth slightly less. It's basic supply and demand. Increase the supply of something, and the value per unit goes down. And that's your purchasing power evaporating. Now here's what makes this particularly devastating. Wages don't keep up with real inflation. The government reports CPI numbers that understate actual inflation through methodology changes and substitutions. But even if you believe the official numbers, wages lag significantly. Your employer doesn't give you a raise every time prices go up. They give you a raise once a year at best. And that raise is based on company performance, budget constraints, your negotiation skills, not on actual inflation. So even in a good year where you get a 4% raise, if real inflation is running at 6%, you took a 2% pay cut in real terms. Your standard of living declined. And this compounds year over year. After 5 years of this, you're significantly poorer than you were even though your salary went up nominally. Warren Buffett's approach to fighting inflation has always been to own things that can raise their prices. Businesses that have pricing power, real estate that appreciates, assets that inflate along with the currency. He doesn't hold cash beyond what's immediately needed. He doesn't depend on a salary. He owns income-generating assets, and that's the model we need to replicate at whatever scale makes sense for our situation. We need to transition from pure wage dependence to asset ownership, from trading time for money to owning things that produce money, from being at the mercy of inflation to being protected from it or even benefiting from it. Strategy number 1. Diversify your income streams beyond a single salary. This is the foundation. As long as you're dependent on one job, one employer, one salary, you're vulnerable. You have no pricing power. You can't raise your rates when costs go up. You're stuck negotiating for modest annual raises that don't keep pace with inflation. You need multiple income streams. And I'm not talking about working 3 jobs and burning yourself out. I'm talking about building income sources that don't require trading hours for dollars, or that can scale beyond your time. The first and most accessible option for most people is dividend-paying stocks. These are shares of companies that pay you cash regularly just for owning them. And here's why this matters for inflation protection. Good companies with pricing power can raise prices when their costs go up. When inflation drives up their expenses, they pass those costs to customers. Their profits stay stable or grow, and they can increase their dividends. So your dividend income rises along with inflation. You're not stuck with a fixed payment that loses value. You're receiving income that adjusts upward as the currency debases. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway owns massive positions in dividend stocks like Coca-Cola and Apple specifically. but COSO specifically because these companies have the power to raise prices without losing customers. That's inflation protection.
Now, you don't need millions to benefit from this. You can start with a few $1,000s. Open a brokerage account and buy shares of dividend aristocrats, companies that have increased their dividends every year for 25 years or more. These are businesses with proven pricing power. They've raised dividends through multiple recessions and inflation cycles. They're about as safe as dividend stocks get, and while the yield might only be 2 or 3% initially, that dividend grows over time. A stock yielding 3% today might be yielding 5 or 6% on your original investment 10 years from now because the company keeps raising the dividend. That's compounding income that protects against inflation. The second income stream to build is real estate, specifically rental income. Real estate is one of the best inflation hedges that exists, because both the property value and the rental income typically rise with inflation. When everything costs more, rents go up. Your tenant is essentially paying you in devaluing dollars to cover a mortgage that's fixed. So your debt burden decreases in real terms while your income increases. This is the perfect inflation setup. Now, I know buying rental property seems out of reach for many people. Down payments are large, property prices are high. But there are ways to start smaller. House hacking, where you buy a duplex, live in one unit, and rent the other. The rental income helps pay your mortgage. Or REITs, real estate investment trusts that pay dividends from rental income. These are publicly traded so you can buy shares with a few $100s. They don't give you the same leverage benefits as owning property directly, but they do provide rental income that adjusts with inflation. The third income stream is what I'll call scalable side income. This is any business or service you can provide that isn't limited by your hours. Digital products you create once and sell repeatedly. Online courses, ebooks, software, design templates. Consulting or coaching where you charge by value delivered, not by the hour. Affiliate marketing where you earn commissions on sales. YouTube or content creation where ad revenue and sponsorships can grow without working more hours. The key characteristic is that your income isn't capped by time. And you have the ability to raise prices as your costs increase. Unlike an employee who can't unilaterally decide to get paid more, a business owner can raise prices. That's pricing power. That's inflation protection. The goal isn't to make any one of these income streams huge immediately. The goal is to plant seeds in multiple areas so that over time, as they grow, you're not entirely dependent on your salary. Maybe 5 years from now, 20% of your income comes from dividends and rental properties and side business. 10 years from now, maybe it's 40%. Eventually, maybe you're not dependent on the salary at all. And at every stage of this journey, you're more protected from inflation because a larger portion of your income has pricing power or grows with asset values. Strategy number 2. Convert cash into appreciating or income-producing assets as quickly as possible. This is where most people go wrong. They accumulate cash. They save money in checking accounts or savings accounts earning 1% interest while inflation runs at 5 or 6%. They're losing 4 to 5% of their purchasing power every year. That's a guaranteed loss. Cash is being destroyed by inflation. It's the worst thing to hold long term. And yet most people hold significant amounts of it because they think it's safe. It's not safe. It's guaranteed to lose value. Warren Buffett holds massive amounts of cash at times, but only when he can't find better investments. And even then, it's in treasury bills earning 5%, not in a checking account earning nothing. For normal people, the strategy should be keep enough cash for 3 to 6 months of expenses as an emergency fund. That's your buffer against unexpected costs or job loss. Everything beyond that should be invested in assets. Stock index funds that track the market. Real estate, your own business, dividend stocks. Bonds that adjust for inflation. Gold or silver as insurance. Any real asset that either appreciates or generates income. Because these assets protect you from inflation in ways cash cannot. Here's the math that makes this clear. Let's say you have $50,000 in a savings account earning 1% interest. After 1 year, you have $50,500. But if inflation ran at 6% that year, you need $53,000 just to maintain the same purchasing power you started with. You lost $2,500 of real wealth. It wasn't stolen in a dramatic way. It was eroded silently through inflation. Now imagine you had invested that $50,000 in a stock index fund that returned 10%. You'd have $55,000. Even accounting for 6% inflation, you gained real wealth. The difference between holding cash and holding assets is the difference between getting poorer and getting richer during inflation. And I know what people say, but what if the market crashes? What if I need the money? These are valid concerns. That's why you have the emergency fund. That's why you don't invest money you'll need in the next year or two. But money you won't need for 5, 10, 20 years? That money should absolutely not be sitting in cash losing value to inflation. It should be invested in assets that have a chance to grow faster than inflation. And historically, stocks have done exactly that. Over any 20-year period, stocks have outpaced inflation by a significant margin, not every year, not every 5 years. But over long periods, real assets beat cash and bonds. That's not speculation. That's historical fact. Strategy number 3. Negotiate aggressively and frequently for salary increases or build skills that command higher pay. If you're still dependent on a salary as your primary income, and most people are, you need to be much more aggressive about increasing that salary. Most people ask for a raise once every year or two. They accept whatever their employer offers. They're grateful for 3% and don't push back. But in an inflationary environment, 3% is a pay cut. You need to be pushing for 6, 8, 10% raises. And you need to be willing to change jobs to get them. Here's the reality of the modern job market. The biggest salary increases come from changing employers, not from staying loyal. Someone who changes jobs every 2 to 3 years will earn significantly more over their career than someone who stays at one company for a decade. That's because external hires get paid market rates while internal employees get modest annual raises. So if inflation is pushing market rates up 6% a year, but your company is only giving 3% raises, you're falling further behind market rates every year you stay. After 3 years, you might be earning 15 to 20% below what you could get by switching jobs. That's thousands of dollars in lost income every year. Forever, if you don't make a move, Warren Buffett has talked about the importance of investing in yourself, building skills that increase your earning power. This is the highest return investment most people can make. If you spend a year learning a skill that allows you to earn $20,000 more per year for the rest of your career, that's potentially $1 million return on maybe a few $1,000 and some evenings of study. That's an absurd return. Better than any stock pick, better than any real estate deal. Investing in skills that the market values highly is inflation protection because high-demand skills command high and rising compensation. Software engineering, data analysis, sales, marketing, anything in high demand with limited supply. Build skills in these areas and you have pricing power, you can demand higher pay, you can change jobs easily. You're not at the mercy of one. Employer strategy number 4, reduce or eliminate high-interest debt, but use low-interest debt strategically. Debt is interesting in an inflationary environment because it cuts both ways. High-interest debt like credit cards is devastating because you're paying 15, 20, 25% interest while your income might only be growing 3% with salary raises. You're falling behind exponentially. That debt needs to be eliminated as quickly as possible. It's an emergency. Every dollar of high-interest debt is destroying your financial future, but low-interest fixed-rate debt is different. A mortgage at 3% or a student loan at 4%, these are actually inflation hedges in disguise. Here's why. You borrowed dollars when they were more valuable, and you're paying them back with dollars that are less valuable. If inflation runs at 5% and your mortgage is at 3%, you're effectively borrowing at -2% in real terms. The bank is losing money in real terms on the loan and you're benefiting. Your payment is fixed. It never goes up. But inflation is eroding the real burden of that payment every year. 5 years from now, that same mortgage payment will feel much easier because your income has likely risen with inflation, but the payment hasn't. 10 years from now, even more so. This is why Warren Buffett and other wealthy people are comfortable with mortgage debt even when they could pay cash. It's cheap money that gets cheaper over time in real terms. It allows you to keep more of your capital invested in assets that appreciate faster than the loan costs. So the strategy is eliminate high-interest debt aggressively. But don't be in a rush to pay off low-interest debt. Make the minimum payments and invest the difference in assets. Let inflation work for you by eroding the real value of the debt while your assets appreciate. Strategy number 5. Build inflation into your lifestyle and spending decisions. This is about psychology and planning. Most people make financial plans based on today's prices. They think I can afford a $1,500 apartment and a $400 grocery budget and a $200 entertainment budget, and then they lock themselves into that lifestyle. But when inflation runs hot for a few years, that same lifestyle now costs $2,000 for rent, $550 for groceries, and $275 for entertainment. Suddenly, you can't afford your own life. You're going into debt just to maintain the same standard of living you had 3 years ago. The solution is to build in a buffer. Assume prices will go up 5% per year and plan accordingly. Don't spend up to your current income limit. Spend 75 or 80% of what you could afford and invest the difference. That way, when inflation pushes costs up, you have room to absorb it without crisis. You're not immediately desperate for a raise. You're not forced to go into debt. You have breathing room. And the money you were investing? That's growing and throwing off income that helps offset the higher costs. You've built resilience into your financial structure. Warren Buffett has lived this way his entire life. He's earned billions, but he's never inflated his lifestyle to match. He lives in a house he bought in the 1950s. He drives normal cars. He eats at McDonald's. His personal spending is a tiny fraction of what he could afford, and this approach has 2 benefits. First, he never has to worry about inflation affecting his lifestyle because his spending is so far below his means. Second, all the money he doesn't spend gets invested and compounds, creating more wealth. You don't need billions to apply this principle. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Build a gap between your income and your expenses that grows over time. That gap is your inflation protection. That gap is your security. Strategy number 6. Understand the difference between income and wealth and optimize for wealth. This is the final piece that ties everything together. Most people optimize for income. They want a higher salary. They want to earn more, and that's fine as far as it goes. But income alone doesn't protect you from inflation. Because if you earn more, but spend more, you're no better off. You're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher income level. What protects you from inflation is wealth, assets, things you own that hold value or produce income. The goal isn't just to earn more. The goal is to convert earned income into wealth as quickly as possible. Every dollar you earn can take one of 3 paths. You can spend it on consumption, which provides temporary satisfaction but no lasting value. You can save it as cash, which provides security but loses value to inflation. Or you can invest it in assets, which provide the potential for appreciation and income that outpaces inflation. The third path is the only one that builds wealth, the only one that protects you long term. Warren Buffett's wealth isn't from his salary. His salary at Berkshire Hathaway has been $100,000 a year for decades. His wealth is from the assets he owns. Stocks in Berkshire and other companies, businesses that generate cash flow. Real estate, these assets appreciate. They throw off income. They grow faster than inflation. That's how he went from millionaire to billionaire, not by earning more salary, by owning appreciating assets. And the same principle applies at any scale. A person earning $50,000 a year who invests 20% and builds a portfolio of dividend stocks and rental property over 30 years will be far wealthier and better protected from inflation than someone earning $100,000, who spends it all and owns nothing, putting it all together. So, what does an inflation-proof financial life look like in practice? Let me paint a picture using a realistic example. Meet Sarah. She's 32 years old, works in marketing, making $70,000 a year. 3 years ago, she was comfortable. Her rent was $1,200. Groceries were $150 a week. Life was affordable, but inflation has been brutal. Her rent is now $1,700. Groceries are $220 a week, same apartment, same food, but it costs $6,000 more per year just to maintain the same lifestyle and her salary. She got a 3% raise last year, so she's falling behind, getting poorer. Despite working the same job, Sarah realizes she needs to make changes. First, she builds multiple income streams. She opens a brokerage account and starts automatically investing $300 per month in Dividend Aristocrat stocks. Not a lot, but it's a start. After 2 years, she's accumulated $8,000 and is earning about $240 a year in dividends. Those dividends get reinvested buying more shares. Second, she takes a course on freelance marketing strategy. Costs her $400 and takes 6 weeks of evening study, but it allows her to pick up side clients. She does 3 projects over the next year, billing at $150 per hour, makes an extra $9,000. This is income she controls. If her costs go up, she can raise her rates. She has pricing power. Third, she aggressively job hunts. After 8 months, she gets an offer at a new company for $85,000. That's a 21% increase. Far more than she'd ever get staying put. She takes it. Fourth, she pays off her credit card debt that was costing her 22% interest. That was bleeding money. Once it's gone, she redirects that payment toward investing. Fifth, instead of moving to a more expensive apartment now that she's making more money, she keeps the $1,700 place and banks the difference. Her income went up $15,000. Her spending went up 0. That entire $15,000 gets invested, plus the $9,000 from freelancing. She's investing over $24,000 a year now, after 5 years of this approach. Sarah has built a portfolio worth $140,000, throwing off $4,000 a year in dividends. She has consistent freelance clients generating $15,000 per year inside income. Her salary is now $95,000 at another new job. Her total income is $114,000. But more importantly, she owns assets. She has income streams that aren't dependent on one employer. She has pricing power with her freelance work. She has dividends that grow with inflation. And she's still living below her means, still investing the difference. Inflation is still happening. Prices are still going up. But Sarah's income is going up faster. She's protected. She's winning. This is what inflation-proofing looks like for everyday people. It's not one magic solution. It's a system, multiple income streams. Aggressive income growth through job changes and skill building. Assets that appreciate and generate income. Spending discipline, automatic investing. Strategic use of debt. All working together to ensure that your income and wealth grow faster than inflation erodes purchasing power. And the beautiful part is you don't need a lot of money to start. You need a plan and consistency. The person who starts this at 30 will be financially secure by 45. The person who starts at 40 will be secure by 55. The person who never starts will be at the mercy of inflation their entire life, getting slowly poorer year after year despite working hard. Warren Buffett has said that you only find out who's swimming naked when the tide goes out, right now. Inflation is the tide going out, and most people are about to discover they've been swimming naked. No assets, no pricing power, no protection. Just a salary that's losing value and costs that keep rising, but it doesn't have to be you. You can build protection starting today, not tomorrow. Not next year, today. Start building that second income stream. Start converting cash to assets. Start investing in skills that command higher pay. Start negotiating more aggressively. Start living below your means and investing the difference. These actions compound over time into real security, into real wealth, into true inflation protection. Because inflation is not going away. The government will keep printing money, prices will keep rising, and your choice is simple: be a victim of inflation or be protected from it. The tools are available, the strategies work. The only question is whether you'll implement them, because 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll either be secure and growing wealthier despite inflation, or you'll be struggling harder than ever, wondering why working hard wasn't enough. And the difference between those two futures is the decisions you make starting right now.